I'm really delighted to be here. This is, I was telling you, this is probably the only event I'm going to do with my book where I'll know so many people in the audience. So thank you very much for coming and for supporting me. And I want to tell you a little bit more about my dad. When I was a little girl, my father had a studio. He always had a studio at home, in his home. And when I was a little girl, I used to go there and I spent many, many days, many afternoons after school with my dad in his studio when we talk about things that fathers and daughters talk about. And he had a lot of very interesting paraphernalia there in his studio, and I would watch him make his beautiful paintings. And if he was making a painting of a heart, for example, he would tell me how it worked to circulate the blood. Or if he was making a picture of the stomach, he told me about how digestion worked. And it was really the pictures that told the story. And so today I'm going to show you some pictures and tell you about Frank Netter. Frank Netter came from very humble beginnings. His parents had a stationery store in New York City in the theater district. And all the kids in the family had to work in the store before school and after school. And he would work there and he would look at the magazines and he would look at the newspapers, and he would see the paintings, the pictures that were done by some great artists. You know, they didn't use photography much in those days, and so there would be pictures. There were pictures by J.C. Leyendecker, for example, who had a New Year's baby on the cover of the Saturday Evening Post every December. Or there were James Montgomery Flagg, his posters, "I want you for U.S. Army." That was in posters all over New York City, all over the country. And there was Norman Rockwell was just getting his start with pictures on the covers of the Saturday Evening Post. It was the golden age of illustration. And Frank would look at these pictures and he said, "These people must lead wonderful lives. I want to be an artist." When he was 11 years old, he drew this picture of his mother. She had been peeling potatoes and she dozed off. And he went and got a picture and drew her picture. And he must have liked it very much because he kept it his whole life. And when he was in high school, he made this picture for the cover of the student publication. They published a magazine, and he made this. And I think you can see the influence of those the Saturday Evening Post covers in this picture. But he also found out when he was in high school about a place called the National Academy of Design, and that was. It still is a wonderful place where they have some very, very great artists who are the academicians, and they have a school there, and they teach young aspiring artists. And he found out about that place, and he took his portfolio there, and they said, "Okay, you can come and we will teach you how to be an artist. We'll teach you about art." And that's what he did. And he said, oh boy, now he had arrived. They didn't charge any admission, but there were some wonderful things that he learned at the National Academy. But his mother found out he was going to art school at night. After school, he'd go to school in daytime, go to the art school at night. And she said to him, "You know, Frank, art is a very nice thing, but it is no way for a young man to earn a living. You need to be a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer." Well, he made a deal with her. She agreed to let him continue to study art if he would go to college, if he would agree to go to college, and if he would keep up his grades so that he could go to college. And so that's what he did. He went to College of the City of New York, as it was called then. This is a picture of the quadrangle at City College, which he drew in those days. And then he went to the National Academy, not so much because he was busy with his schoolwork at college, and plus they had art classes in college that he took. And so he was getting very good grades. He made the honor roll in college, and then in his first year. But then, in the summer of after his first year of school, his mother went into the hospital. She had a hysterectomy, which I understand is maybe not too different what you might do today. It was an open hysterectomy, and then anesthesia was terrible. They had the drip anesthesia, and which made the patients, just, it was awful. And then they had no antibiotics. This was 1924. Well, she got an infection, and 4 days later, she died. Now, his father had died when he was a little kid. He was left with no parents. Here he was, 19 years old, and he cried, and he cried. For days, he cried. But he said, okay, that's it. She wanted me to be a doctor. I'm going to go to medical school. So he finished his studies at City College. He went then to New York University Medical College. Medical school was tough. They gave him a box of bones, and they had to learn, or they were out. But he did. He learned. He found that if he could make pictures, he could learn his subjects best. Well, it wasn't long before his classmates started asking for pictures too. Could you make me some of those pictures so I could learn? And his professors started asking for pictures. Could you make me some of those pictures so I could use them to teach? Could you make me some pictures so I could put in my publication? So he made a little bit of money on the side making those pictures while he was a medical student. This is an oil painting he did of the view from the university there at Bellevue Hospital, where New York University Medical College is located. And then he interned at Bellevue Hospital, and in those days, Bellevue had its own ambulance, and the interns rode the ambulance. There were no such things as paramedics in those days. It was the interns who did the work. They wore these white outfits. They had a black hat, said in gold letters, Surgeon Bellevue Hospital, and they carried a notebook, a stethoscope, and a reflex hammer. And they would bring these patients into the emergency pavilion at Bellevue Hospital. After he interned 2 years at Bellevue Hospital, this internship in medicine and surgery, he did that, and then he set up a surgery practice, and he joined the outpatient surgical staff of Mount Sinai Hospital, one of the premier hospitals in New York, and in the country. And he was there, but here it was, 1933. It was the Great Depression. Nobody had any money, and if they had any money at all, they certainly wouldn't go to a young doctor right out of school. But the pharmaceutical companies found out that he could make these pictures, and they started coming to him for pictures, and they said he was getting about $50 a picture, and that's what was tiding him over. He was moonlighting, making these pictures. So, but he felt very guilty about it. He thought he should be building up his surgery practice. So he said, okay, the next pharmaceutical advertising manager that comes to the door and wants a picture, I'm going to ask a ridiculous amount of money. I'm going to ask $300, and they'll go away and they'll never bother me again. So the next advertising manager wanted a series of 5 pictures. And he said, okay, I have to get $1,500 for these pictures. Oh, that's a lot of money, the advertising manager said. And he went away. But the next day he called up and he said, okay, I got permission. We're going to pay you $1,500 for each of the 5 pictures. So it wasn't long before he resigned from Mount Sinai to devote himself full-time to making medical pictures.